So today we've got a very important topic. We're going to talk about how to read labels. Now I know right away you might be thinking, oh, this sounds silly, this sounds ridiculous. I know how to read a label. But if there's one thing I've learned from working in a vitamin store for 7 years is that a lot of people don't know how to read labels. Either they don't understand what certain things mean, they don't know the relation of one thing to another, their eyes go to the wrong spot immediately, lots of stuff. And it's confusing. You know, no one ever teaches how to read labels most of the time, so that's what I'm here to try and do. And we're going to break this up into 3 sections because there's just too much to cover in one video. I'm going to talk first about general food labels, stuff that you find on most everything you look at. Then we're going to talk about protein powders more specifically. And lastly, we're going to go over supplements, dietary supplements, in a little bit of detail. Of course, that's another broad topic, but I'm just going to try and pinpoint some basic stuff that you're going to encounter a lot. So today's first topic that we're going to talk about is food labels. So let me grab my label and stick this up here. Alright, so this is an example of something that you're going to encounter on anything that's a food item, which includes beverages, by the way. I copied the label of a particular protein bar that we carry that's really popular right now, just because it gave me some info to talk about. And we're going to talk about these 6 things over here. And we're going to go one at a time. So right now, the first and most important thing is the serving size. So many people, I found out, look directly over here. They want to look at the fat, they want to look at the carbohydrate, the protein content. All this stuff, though, is dependent upon serving size. This is critical. This tells you what all of this means. Before you understand the serving size, you have no idea what the rest of the label is talking about. Because a lot of products, believe it or not, will have a serving size that's not the entire container. In this case it is. It says 1 bar and then it gives you the gram amount. 60 grams is the quantity of the entire bar. But I've seen on lots of like sugary drinks, energy drinks, candy bars, the serving size will be half a bar or 3/4 of the drink or something like that. So you really want to check the serving size first because that tells you what all this means in relation to how much of a product that you consume. So the next thing that we're going to go over is, we can move to this side of the label now. We're going to talk about the percent daily value, these numbers over here. Now whenever you see one of these little asterisks, you always want to find where it lives because this is going to tell you something important. And in this label it's over here, and it says percent daily value based on a 2,000 calorie diet. So again, what does that mean? We see a percentage, but we don't know what it's in relation to, so it has no relevance to understand that it's talking about a 2,000 calorie diet, which presents a problem because most people don't eat a 2,000 calorie diet. It's usually more. For some people it's right on, some people it's less. But again, these numbers are in relation to that diet. So this percentage of daily value of fat may not entirely apply to you. Also, people with different fitness goals or different lifestyles might need to consume more or less of the daily value of certain nutrients than others. Someone who's really trying to get lean and cut, maybe they're a bodybuilder, they're a competition athlete or something like that, they want to look really great, they're going to cut back on their carbs a lot. So this might be too much carbohydrate for them. So it really depends on you. It depends on your lifestyle, your other dietary practices, your exercise, etc. So again, these numbers are relative and it depends on your diet, blah, 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 blah. So make sure that you're aware of that. The next thing we're going to talk about is very, very important, the carbohydrates section. I know a lot of people who the first number they look at, which by the way is not the serving size, which we know that it should be, is this right here, total carbohydrate. And they see that it says 23 grams and they immediately freak out. They're like, oh my gosh, that's way too much carbs in 1 protein bar. Like, why is there so much carbohydrate in there? And I say, stop. You don't understand what you're looking at because this is a total number. Carbohydrate does not necessarily mean sugar, but a lot of people think it does. Sugar is a kind of carbohydrate, but it's not the only kind you encounter in your food. If you look closely, you'll see that it's broken down here. On this label in particular, there are 3 different subsections. There's fiber, 13 grams, which is a lot for a protein bar, which is awesome. Sugars, 1 gram, and then erythritol, which is another sugar sweetener, 6 grams. So what does this mean? When we look at this and we see 23 grams, we immediately want to freak out, but you have to understand the sugars are the critical part. This is the energy yielding portion of the carbohydrate. Some people will say it's the impact carbs of the product, the ones that really matter to your diet, your exercise, your calorie counting, all that sort of stuff, because 23 grams does not yield all of the calorie content. Which brings us to the next point. We're going to figure out how to calculate the calories that you see here. So the next thing we see beneath the serving size is the calorie total, which for this product says 180. And then it tells us the calories from fat is 70. Now where do those numbers come from? Fats, carbohydrates, and proteins are what are the calorie yielding portions of any food, really. Proteins have 4 calories per gram, carbohydrates have 4 calories per gram, and fat has 9 calories per gram. Now these are kind of general numbers. They're a little bit approximated because there is a little bit of variation, but those are good starting points. So let's do some math here. First of all, we see 8 grams of fat. So if we do 8 times 9, it's going to give us 72. And then if we look over here, we see that it says 70. They rounded down a little bit, but that's not a big deal because, again, we know that 9 calories per gram of fat is a little bit of an approximation. So we have 72 calories from the fat. Next we have protein, 20 grams of protein, which is excellent for a bar, by the way. This is really good stuff. If we multiply that by 4, we get 80, so we have 80 calories from the protein. Now we come to the carbohydrates, which again can be kind of confusing because do you multiply this number by 4? We know now that we don't do that because not all of these are calorie yielding. What we're really concerned about is not the fiber, because fiber has no calories in it, goes out the same way it came in. The sugars are what give us calories, and here we see that there are 6 total grams of sugar, which means if we, there's 7 total, my mistake, 7 total, 6 plus 1 equals 7, times 4, that's going to give us 28 calories from carbohydrates. So we have 72 from fat, 80 from protein, and then we have 28 from carbohydrate, which is going to equal exactly 180. So that works out pretty well, even though they took a little liberty with the fat content. It's funny how when they go to the total calories, they account for the extra 2 calories from fat, but when we're talking about just calories from fat, they only have 70. It's a nice round number, I guess. So that's how you calculate the calories, and I'll make sure all those numbers appear on the screen as you're watching so that you don't have to remember them in your head. So we took care of the calorie calculation. Next, just 2 more quick things to point out. This won't be long. The vitamins section, which is right down here on this label. This tells us the percent daily values, again, of certain nutrients that can or sometimes can't be found in this product. Notice that, again, it's not measured in milligrams. It's measured in percent daily value. So it's relative to your diet, it's relative to your activity level, it's relative to your system. Again, these numbers, you can't take them at face value. You really have to analyze them according to what your particular needs are. And then the next section, which we haven't talked about, are the ingredients and the allergen content. I didn't feel like writing everything out, but you know what ingredients are. And then the every product will list common allergens down here. This one in particular has almonds and milk-derived ingredients. So obviously, if you're allergic to stuff, you want to make sure you check that and make sure it's not going to give you an allergic reaction. So that covers just, general topics about food labels, info that you can apply to anything you look at. Of course, we could get more in detail, but we're not going to do that right now because I'd have to get specific about everything, and that would be basically impossible. So hopefully this gave you some info to go off of. Hopefully when you look at a label now, you feel like you know what you're looking at. Hopefully you don't look directly over here. Hopefully the first place you go is to the serving size. And join us in the next video where we're going to talk about protein powders.